Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Galactic Gumbo number 29. As you can see, it is just me and Rick. That's why we have labeled this episode as Galactic Gumbo number 29. Mike and Rick, two sexy bearded men. So, with that being said, Dakota could not join us for the next show. Josh is off watching Penn State hammer this other team. And then Dalton is at work. So me and Rick are going to, we've got a little lineup for us, and we're going to, we're going to do the best we can here for about a good hour, a little over maybe. As usual, you can find me on Twitter as a BotConFan1978. And Rick, tell me where they can find you at.
And you can always find me on Twitter as Shatterglass Jazz.
And also, since we are on my channel, if you are thinking that this is just another G.I. Joe show, it's not. It is Galactic Gumbo number 29. Just another G.I. Joe show will be next Saturday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we'll talk more about that towards the end of this show. But we are going to start off with our Mount Rushmore. And we decided to do the best comic stories of the 80s through the 90s of Marvel and DC. So the top 4 that we saw or read growing up in that decades that we liked growing up. So, Rick, I'm sure you got all yours lined out better than I do, so I'll let you go ahead and go.
Yeah, this was a tough one. This is I think this is probably one of the toughest Mount Rushmores we've done for me. During the 80s and the 90s, I was so big into comics. I'm still big into comics, but in the 80s and 90s, they were starting to define just who I was. Even the career choice and all of that. So the top 4 are definitely like 4 that stood the test of time, and they're still with me today as far as resonating with me. And I've got them in order. Sometimes we don't have orders. This one I've definitely got in an order. Number 4, definitely the early 80s, but the Phoenix Saga, like that Claremont run on an X-Men with Jean and Cyclops and Wolverine, the whole team. I know a lot of people probably grew up watching the cartoon, and they covered it too, the animated version, but it was nothing like the Phoenix Saga that was in the comics. I mean, for a while, I don't know if it is now, but for a while, it was the definitive Marvel storyline. That was, you need to read it if you're reading Marvel. So that's my number 4. Number 3 is a Spider-Man storyline that still resonates with me today, and with a villain that you wouldn't think, and that is Kraven's Last Hunt. If you're reading Spidey today, or you grew up on the movies that Marvel or Sony's been putting out, and that's cool, but if you ever get a chance, go back and read Kraven's Last Hunt. It's an absolute gem of a Spider-Man Marvel book. At number 2, and this one was the hardest one. 1 and 2 for me they could easily be exchanged. One doesn't overpower the other. And I actually went to lunch with Pia on Friday. We ate some barbecue, and we ended up talking comics for about an hour. And so this is kind of why this topic was on the top of my brain. We just talked about this stuff like 2 geeks sitting in the middle of a barbecue restaurant. But we talked about this. One of my favorite storylines of all time was the Mutant Massacre in the X-Men books. And I thought, this is one I wanted to at least talk about a little bit. Up until that point, when you had something happen to, other than like the Phoenix Saga, where Jean Grey, was down and out, and they started, they killed off major characters. Nothing, you read the X-Men books, there was always fights and things like that, but it didn't feel like the characters they were kind of almighty. Like they always came out on top to some degree. The X-Men had a great group. But when the Mutant Massacre started, the beginning of that story starts with a mutant in the Morlock tunnels who didn't have a very powerful power, but it was a power. She was a misfit, and they started the book with a guy named Scalp Hunter and the Marauders, who later we found out Mr. Sinister had put together to hunt down mutants. They started with them tracking her down in the tunnels and getting right on top of her, and Scalp Hunter just blowing her head off. I mean, that's kind of how the story started. And then as you got into it, I don't want to spoil it if you haven't read it, but I would recommend reading it. It's dark and lots of things happen to Kitty, Wolverine, Angel. A lot of things happen to our characters. So if you haven't read Mutant Massacre, go read it. Definitely read it. And my number one was Age of Apocalypse, and it happened in the mid-90s. And I loved what they did with Age of Apocalypse. At that point, we had seen like the X-Men cartoon. We had seen, you know, so many years of X-Men, and all of a sudden they did this. This storyline with this guy named Legion, who, you know, there's a show on now with Legion. But this idea of what if the Professor X had not formed the X-Men, and we end up with this crazy alternate universe version of what it would have been like. And it gave us a lot of like characters that have actually crossed into modern comics and things like that. But it is a terrific, if you feel like you've read every Wolverine story and every Cyclops story and every Jean Grey or Kitty, if you feel like you've seen it all, go read Age of Apocalypse. You can find it in like hardbacks and collected editions. It's totally worth it. So that's my number one.
Now that you had mentioned that, I just told that was one of the best, I mean, probably one of the best X-Men story arcs there ever was.
Yeah.
And of course, I won't use it in my top four because this was kind of like on a fly on the best of our Mount Rushmore. But that would definitely be one of my number one honorable mention, definitely. But for me, growing up in the 80s and 90s, most of my comic reading, or actually probably about 95% of my comic reading, was a DC comics. I did more DC than anything else. When I started reading comics, it was because I had to start wearing glasses, and the doctor told my parents, you know, get into reading more. And of course, I wasn't reading stuff without a picture. Here I am, almost 40 years old, and I still don't read nothing unless there's a picture involved in it. So I'll do mine backwards from 1 to 4. My number one story arc, hands down, even being as old as I am, would be the death of Superman. That there was, you took America's icon hero and you killed him. You murdered him. You beat him to a pulp until he was completely dead. It was just, you're just thinking to yourself, the man who can never die is laid there, you know, dead in Lois Lane's arms. You know, it was something you never thought see what happened. And of course, there was the death, the funeral for a friend. Then there was the reign of Superman, which I think now looking back on it years later, it was kind of a little far-fetched out there, I guess you'd say. But that would be number one for me more than anything else. The second best storyline, in my opinion, as a child growing up was the breaking of the bat, when Bane bent Bruce Wayne over his knee and cracked his spine. You know, put him in a wheelchair. You know, leading up to all that was great. The Ezreal storyline after that, I wasn't a huge fan of him. I'm just particular, I guess. I just have my heart, my characters who I love, and that's what I like to see. You can recycle the story so many times, and I'll still read it. So Breaking of the Bat would be really one of my top ones. The third one for me would have been basically Marvel's Transform run was good, long, multiple different stories. But I felt the best run was sadly the G2 line, which was 1 through 12, 12-issue series of the Marvel line. So Transformers as a whole had multiple storylines, but the G2 line, I liked it because they kind of got a little more raw with that one, I think, than they did with the original run. And then the final one I had, because we were talking about the X-Men before he came on, and one of the stories I do recall reading, it was a 4-part miniseries, and that was we can't recall the story arc. We've talked about it offline.
The name, yeah.
Yeah, but it was when Magneto had stripped Wolverine of his animation, whatever how you pronounce the word.
Adamantium. Yep.
Antimadium. He had ripped that out of him. That was over a 4-issue series. The cover, I remember specifically, it had a stripe down the side with a foil card on it. If there's only one person in the chat, so if you know, I think it's Dalton, to be honest with you. But if you know what it is, put it in the chat so I know, or message me, or let us know. I'm kind of curious to remember what it was called. I do not remember whatsoever. And then, of course, the honorable mention, which Rick had already mentioned it, and I talked about it, was the Age of Apocalypse. Was just basically you took that hardcore, what you grew up on from the 60s, and you just completely twisted it around like they never existed. The stuff that you saw Scott Summers with long brown hair, Wolverines with Jean Grey, but he's missing a hand because Scott blew it off. Just real good, real good story arc. And there were multiple series. There was like 4 or 5 or 4 miniseries each.
Yeah, and there is a collected edition now that has all of it. So if you haven't read it, like that one, to me, you just need, if you are a fan of comics, go read that book. Yeah,
that was one of the, man, that would have to be one of Marvel's cornerstones of the 90s. It was the 90s.
Yeah, about around 94, 95 it started.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe a year or so, something like that.
Yeah, because, I mean, it was like they did an Alpha and an Omega, and then
it was one of the first things that bookend. We were talking about that the other day. The bookends with the Alpha and Omega. They do that all the time now. They do that constantly now.
Well, it's kind of like I think the X-Men kind of set it up for it. Once you look back on it, I don't remember nothing else besides that. I
had 2 other honorable mentions. So I grew up on Marvel stuff. I had some DC books, but not a whole lot of them. As an adult now, like in my late 30s, in my 30s, I got into DC, and I am hardcore DC now. But my honorable mention books, one is Watchmen. Everybody's probably at least heard of the movie. Read the book. That Watchmen book is comic book masterpiece. And then the other one was Dark Knight Returns. So I mean, those 2 books kind of defined the late 80s, or around 90, 89, 90, in that era. 2 great books, storylines.
All right. We're going to go to our next topic. I know we've been piddling around the idea for quite a while, and it's never been where everybody was on the show at the same time. But we were going to do the top, I can't remember how many it was. I thought it was 5. I mean, but we're going to do our top 7. I know it's a weird number.
Yeah, let's talk about where it came from. So this idea came from usually the first week or so in January. We'll get together and do our, like last year we did our top 16 figures. And I thought it would be cool to, like, just at this point, we're in September. Let's just give a slight preview of some of the things that we're thinking about that we've seen. A lot of the year's over. We're 9 months in. So let's just talk about the stuff that we've been loving this year. And it's sort of a preview to our end of the year top 17. And I think Mike and I decided to do our top 7 things we're thinking about that'll make that final list.
Right, it's 7. It's the items we have personally bought in the year 2017 for our toy collection. Rick, you seem to have yours already laid out. I'm still working on a couple more of mine, but if you want to go ahead and just do all 7, and then I'll do my 7. Or you want to go back?
Do you want to do my?
I do one?
Yeah, let's do it like we did the end of the year where we go back. So like we'll start with number 7.
Okay.
All right. So
okay, go ahead.
At number 7, and this is a line we talk about a lot on this show and also Cybercast as well, and that's Titan's Return. And this is by no means a character that is like super popular, but I felt like the action figure was super well done and probably is in the top 5 of the Titan's Return, and that's Twin Twist. I can't believe I'm saying it, but Twin Twist is my number 7 so far this year. That toy, I've messed with it a whole whole lot, and I think it deserves a shout out on the best of.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to, I'm going to be the kind, I collect more different lines than you do. This one here is probably going to come out of left field. You won't believe it. But for people who do collect multiple toy lines, I do dibble dabble a little bit into the Power Ranger Legacy stuff. And my number 7 one would be the Power Ranger Legacy action figure Green Ranger, which would be really, it's basically kind of like a Black Series Star Wars type of thing, where you get a very detailed Power Ranger figure. And the Green Ranger was, by far everyone's favorite, just about everyone's favorite. And it came really detailed. It came with interchangeable hands. It came with the sword that was given him by Rita Repulsa in the TV show. That was never given out. I think they did it on maybe a smaller scale one. And then he comes with a little satchel that goes on his hip, and he has the dragon dagger, which is in the colors, the original colors, not one solid color, but it's detailed out. It's a very detailed, kind of like a Black Series figure would be for Star Wars. So mine would be the Green Ranger that I've gotten this year.
That's cool. All right. My number 6, I definitely have stepped back into Marvel Legends a whole lot. And I said I wasn't going to, and I did this past year. So my number 6 is Marvel Legends Vulture. And it's the Build-A-Figure. A lot of people didn't like the idea of having the wings kind of separated, but having, Vulture in its own figure pack. But I saw nothing wrong with it. I ended up buying the Wave. I like the movie. I love Michael Keaton. And I thought that figure was fantastic for that. We're not talking about Sideshow or Hot Toys, talking about Marvel Legends. I think that figure is probably probably one of my favorite figures that I've spent time with and actually played with, and posed it, took some pictures. So it definitely was going to make this list, and I think it'll stand up. And I think at the end of the year, this one will definitely still be in my list. I'm glad he came with the little stand to hold the wings too. He gives you a few other options to display him. I just think that the Marvel Legends line is doing a great job with their figures, and it's not hard to find them. Distribution is not really an issue for Marvel Legends. So Vulture, number 6.
And since you mentioned Michael Keaton, he did a phenomenal job in that movie as well.
Yeah,
as the Vulture. I thought.
Yeah.
Like they've always said, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
He did a great job. Yeah.
Great Batman and a great villain. My number 6 pick, and this is going back to kind of a 6-inch. Kind of like a Black Series, but it is Star Wars. I'm not going to say it is a Black Series. I can't remember if they labeled it as Black Series or not, but hold on a second. But it was the 40th anniversary, the carded figures from Star Wars in the 6-inch Black Series, Han Solo, which was very hard for me to get, and is a very good detailed figure, interchangeable hands, to where he's wearing the gloves and everything. Hard figure to get. Very hard. He was 1 per case. Never saw him in retail. Had to get it offline. But I would say that was, it was a very good. And it's hard. It's since we're picking out by characters, it's so hard for me to pick only one out of that whole entire line of the carded figures. So, granted, I got the whole series. It took me forever to get it, but so my best one out of that one, I would have to say Han Solo.
And for you, Mike, we've talked about this before, that vintage packaging meant a lot to you when it came to that particular choice, I'm assuming.
Yes. I like Star Wars movies. Do I look at Star Wars toys? Yes. Do I purchase a lot of them? probably about 1% of my collection. And I got those sheerly for the fact of the card art.
Yeah.
Granted, some of the figures are pretty much repackaged. Some of them have some, like the R2 unit has the little rocker boosters on the side.
Yeah.
Princess Leia has the different face sculpt. The rest of them, I'm not too sure. I think Josh said there was a couple other ones that were different. But I mean, I got the whole entire lineup, and it's so awesome having that card art instead of for me personally, the art is great versus it being in a black box only. That's me personally. Like I said, I'm by far no collector of Star Wars by any means.
Yeah.
But that now when the 3 3/4 line comes out, I will probably pick that up because they're going to do a vintage card. You know, I might dip into that. You know, I mean, if they were to do another 40th for the next movie line of these, I would do it. If the distribution was better on them, that's for damn sure.
Right. Distribution
sucked on those. Hasbro should be ashamed what they did on that.
Absolutely. All right, my number 5, and I did not do as much third-party this year as I have done in the past with the Transformer stuff, but this one stood out and is making the list so far this year, and that's the MMC Calidus, which is their Rodimus or Hot Rod from the comic book, More Than Meets the Eye, and I thought it was a fantastic figure. There's one other third party on my list, but this one was almost as good as that one. I thought that it did a really good job of capturing the comic book look. And I like when they go 100% in on, we're going to do the comic book look. That's it. That's what we're after. That's what we're going to do. And that's why it's number 5 on my list.
Now, is that the red and gold one, or is that the purple blue one?
Red and gold one, the More Than Meets the Eye version. The other one is the Lost Light, the newest, where the comic books are right now, currently.
Okay, I was for sure on that one.
Yeah.
All right, my number 5, and I actually have it sitting here right beside me, but it is the G.I. Joe exclusive from the club, and it was exclusive at JoeCon, which is Big Lob. This is my carded figure, autographed by Brad Sanders. Super cool guy. I mean, one of the coolest voice actors I've ever met. I mean, he's right up there with David Kay as one of the great guys to meet and hang out with. He came on our show. You were there, remember? You were right beside me. He came and sat with us and talked to us at our live showing for the Joe Show, and I've talked to him personally on the phone since then about some other issues or other projects to work with him on, and he's a super cool guy. It's a great figure, first modern era figure ever of Big Lob, and surprisingly, guess who puts them out? The Club. The Club did the modern era first ever, and they also did the O-Ring first ever. So there you go.
Yep, that's a good point. All right, number 4. And number 4, also third party. I think I only got like 3 or 4 third party figures this year, but these two made the list. So at number 4 is, and for me, I didn't get him until I think it was January of this year. I think some people might have had this figure back in December, depending on who they ordered it from, but I didn't get mine until January. So that is Tarn, MMC's Tarn, from the More Than Meets the Eye stories. I thought they did a fantastic figure. I'm not sure what other third-party figures I'm getting this year. I know I've got a half of a Omega Supreme. I'm waiting for the second half. So I can't say what's going to be my top third-party figure of the year. We still got a few more months to go, and we know that October through December is always heavy with people trying to get their product out. But right now, Tarn is definitely the best third-party product that I've bought this year. You can transform him in less than 2.5, 3 minutes. The sculpt is great. He looks like Tarn from the book. The vehicle mode is great. I honestly think that if you're going to give if somebody who's never gotten a third-party product, a figure, and they actually read the comics, this is the figure that you go with and you give it to them. Let them put their hands on it. It's a great figure. So that's my number 4.
All right. My number 4 would be San Diego Comic-Con G.I. Joe Missile Commander headquarters set. For people who don't remember this, back in, gosh, the 80s, it was a Sears catalog exclusive. It is a cardboard display. As you can see, it's right up there on my shelf. And I actually have 2 of these. One is still mint and sealed box, which my plan is to get autographed by Daryl Dupriest and Bobby Valla, who was the designer of it at a JoeCon next year. It is a great updated version. It came with it modern figures, which was really good. A little special treat that I did not realize it, and I guess I wasn't familiar with it as much until I actually did a review on it, and that was Bobby Valla, pointed it out to me, but it was the Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander, and I just did not know that. I must have not saw it somewhere, but it is it's a great piece. The figures are great. All around the story behind it, the reason Hasbro did it and stuff of that nature. And if you wanted to get a vintage one, it's going to cost you $200-300 to get your hands on one. To where this here was only $50 if you were able to get your hands on it, either live at San Diego on HasbroToyShop.com or recently this past weekend at HasCon, which I believe they sold out there as well. I'm not too sure if we will see any of those this coming week on the 20th with the rest of the HasCon exclusives. But Missile Command Headquarters set doesn't sound too popular, but it's actually a pretty cool little set. Okay.
All right. Number 3. This one is pretty recent, but I know it's going to end up making the end of the year list, so putting it on here now. At number 3 is Titans Return Trypticon. This thing, a lot of people had issues with the hips, the legs, had to mess with the spring. I myself got lucky, did not. I've transformed this thing maybe 7 or 8 times now. I think it looks fantastic, which is a big thing for me. I have a place for it upstairs in my Transformers room, and I think it's definitely one of my favorite things that they've done in the line. And I love the fact he can eat the Titan Masters because I am a kid at heart. Do I think that they had too many stickers to put on? Damn, they had too many stickers to put on. And yes. I complained about it. So if you're on Twitter and you follow me, I complain.
That and the rims.
Yeah, that and when you don't paint the rims. But as a Trypticon, it looks amazing. I love all 3 modes, even though the Nemesis is a little bit of a reach. The thing is massive. It's so massive, and it just looks so good with the rest of that line. The colors came out great. All the sculpt, if you're going to talk about the high point of the figure, I think the high point, the number 1 bullet point is look at the details all around that sculpt. They went all out. It's probably the when it comes to like how much detail did they put on a mainline figure, I think this one wins. So yeah, if you're following Titans Return, but you have not pulled the trigger on Trypticon, I think you should pull the trigger. Number 3.
I'll chime in on that one a little bit with you right now. Is that I would have loved to have put that in my top 7, but the stickers killed it for me, man. I got maybe 12, maybe 16
I
stickers
remember
on.
you were talking about that.
I like, screw this. I said, you know what? It's sitting right there in the case.
Yeah.
It's fine right there like it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. A buddy of mine got his that I was talking to you about earlier.
Yeah.
With the spring issue. He said it took him 2.5 hours, but he put every one of them on. I'm like, I said, you want to do mine for shits and giggles? You're more than welcome to. I said, I'm not doing it. So no, I couldn't do it.
A long time.
Exactly. This next item that I have, I paid for it about a month ago, but I got it last week, I think, or the week before last. Well, it was last week. I was on vacation. I went down to visit with Dakota. It's actually an older item, but it is a, I believe it's 2001 BotCon. Is it 8-Blink? Is that what it's called, 8-Blink?
What'd you get? I'm not sure. What'd you get?
Shit, hold on. I can't pronounce the name right. Hold on. Dakota will be so proud of me. It's this one.
What'd you get? Yeah.
It's 8-Blink.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I thought. I just want to make sure I was saying the name right. Yeah. I had this at one time. I had to sell it, and Dakota had messaged me about selling a couple other things, and this was on there, and I'm like, I'll take it.
It's cool.
And I mean, I'm right up there with Dakota on Beast Wars. I really enjoyed the TV show. I enjoy the fiction on it. The storyline, the new stuff coming out. You know, I've had Gary Chalk at my convention before, and you know, having this back in the collection. And that was the first thing Dakota asked me when we were at his house, and we were sitting there, and he looked at me, and I was just looking at it inside the box. It was mint and sealed. It wasn't open. Yeah. And he's like, you're going to open it, aren't you? I said, you're damn right I'm going to open it. As soon as I get home, cracking that. I wasn't home 30 minutes, and I cracked the sucker open.
Yeah. That's a 3H figure, right? From the 3H Records comic and all that stuff. Yeah. Yep. It's a good figure.
It's a great figure, even though we got the regular retail one, but having it these colors alone are like they pop out there. It's just cool looking. It's a Beast Wars toy, you know, and I got to stand with Dakota on it, man. Hashtag stand with Big D.
All right. Number 2, people that watch this show, they know I've got 1/6 scale. I'm in the 1/6 scale room, even though it's not my number one thing. Transformers is still number one. Joe is kind of up there too. But the 1/6 stuff, I love it. I do a lot of Hot Toys and Sideshow. So the one figure that has made my list so far, I think at the end of the year, there'll probably be at least 2, maybe 3, but at least 2. Hot Toys Harley Quinn from Suicide Squad. And that's the regular version with the fishnets and the baseball bat and all the daddy's little whatever. All that stuff, all the tats. I think that figure turned out looking so good. You know, people have their problems with the movie. I like the movie. That's just me. I didn't like the villain, but I like the movie. That figure looks so much like Margot Robbie. It is almost creepy. And everybody that I've shown that figure to that either knows Hot Toys or doesn't know Hot Toys has responded with the same exact thing, and that is the jaw-dropping. That's a action figure. So yeah, I mean, like on the shelf, she looks phenomenal. Easy to pose. No real issues with it. So yeah, number 2, Hot Toys, Harley Quinn, Suicide Squad.
You know, on a Cybercast, we saw the other one, the little flashback scene. And I gotta admit, when I even saw it on Big Bad Toy Store's website before we saw it earlier on the show, I'm like, that I mean, it's just knocked down, unbelievable. Yeah. The work they put into that figure, you know. And I find it that figure there's a little better because it comes with a dancing pole.
It is a cool accessory.
It is a cool accessory to go along for your other women dancers.
Yeah.
Number 2 for me, I'm going back to G.I. Joe this year, was Battle Force 2000. And again, it's hard for me to pick one of the figures out of that. But it would actually be a twofer because it's actually the same figure. So it would be Battle Force 2000's DJ and, oh crap, it's on the end of my tongue. What's that? It's the same figure, Rick. Which one was it?
I can't think of his name. I know what you're talking about.
It was
the Brazil one.
Yeah, the Brazil DJ. It came in a 2-pack. Really good head sculpt. I mean, I honestly wanted to say the whole Battle Force 2000, but Rick said I had to pick one. So I had to pick one, but I went with one that had a twin, so I got a twofer out of it. So, but the whole Battle Force 2000, if you're a G.I. Joe fan, but you're not a Battle Force 2000 fan, it's a great set of figures, even though it had 9 bats in it.
Which is saying something. That's really saying something. It came with 9 bats. You still have it on your list. So
yeah, I mean, it's a good. You got to think, if you know the history, the story arc, that they were the first sub team mass murdered.
Yeah.
You know, by a Toxo Viper. You know, so it's like the original story, and then the comic we got at JoeCon was just phenomenal. It was a great written story. So I mean, story goes a whole long ways.
Yeah,
the story's good, and the figures look, 80-90% decent. Then it's a great set, in my opinion. But that's, again, just me. But that's my number 2. Would be that right there.
All right. So number 1, this is our our preview 2017 top 7 figures, but just our preview. It's my number 1 right now. Not sure if it'll be number 1 at the end of the year, but we wanted to do this because it's fun. Number 1, hands down, currently hands down, number 1, MP Megatron. I love this figure. I think it is a true testament to how the design teams, Takara, Hasbro, everyone's gotten better. The first time they took a stab at an MP Megatron, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was horrible. And I'm not going to sugarcoat how long it took me to transform it. And it was half of a night. I think I started at like 11 p.m. and I went to bed at 3. Yeah. So anyway, this new MP Megatron is fantastic. If you haven't picked it up, why have you not picked this up? If you're a Transformers fan, pick it up. The gun mode, fantastic. Bot mode, fantastic. The transformation, the first time there's a learning curve. The first time, afterwards I found it fun. I ended up doing this like 3 or 4 times so in a row, and easily my number 1, MP Megatron.
Well, I will have to jump on the MP bandwagon with you. But again, like the last one, because there was a duplicate of this one, it gets a twofer, which is going to be MP32 and MP38. Hashtag stand up for Big D. This is going to be the Optimus Primal Masterpiece. There were 2 of them. There was the cartoon accurate one, and then there was the regular standard version that we got, a gray version. Had multiple heads. I mean, come on, they put an LED inside this. Usually you have to get third-party companies to do stuff like that. Takara did this for us. So easily has, multiple faces. The MP38, which came with multiple different accessories than the original one did, which would be the alien mask, the little swingy thing, the mace. It came with the mace, and it's just, even though the figure is really no bigger than the original Kenner version, I was really against that. And then when Dakota came down for my show back in May, he brought it and showed it to me, and I was like, this is awesome. I've got to have this in my collection. And I did, and I got that one, and then I was like, I'll be happy with that one. And then I saw Dakota like a couple months ago. We met up down in Texarkana, and he brought that other one, and I looked out, I'm like, damn it, I got to have that one too. So I got a gravy deal on it. Some guy on eBay was selling it. Never displayed. He got it, opened it up, and he was selling it for $75 shipped. So I'm like, I just couldn't pass it up. I had to get it. So my number 1 so far, but I'm right there with Dakota on Beast Wars. So right now, my MP 32, 38 is my number 1s right now. So
awesome. Good
so with that being said, that is really just mine and Rick's top 7. we had talked about doing this, but like we said, it's been a couple of shows since we've gotten the whole gang together at one time.
Yeah.
Something's been going on. I think last week or 2 weeks ago I was on vacation.
Yeah.
And Dakota didn't make it, and then the week
I know,
before,
like, the next show I won't be there for the next Gumbo show, so I was like, you know what? Let's do it tonight.
right?
And it's just a little preview. This is just a little nugget, you know.
Usually, we'll probably, honestly, if I know how Josh is going to do it, it will probably be the top 17 at the beginning of 2018.
Yeah.
Or 18 of 18. I can't remember how it'll be.
It'll
we
be
usually
17 of 17, but it won't happen until January. That's what we did last year.
Right. So it's probably how it'll go again this year. Our other topic, and like I said, we were shooting on the fly on what topics to do. We are actually thinking about postponing the show, but
we started a little late. We definitely started a little late. So
yeah, definitely late, and we weren't for sure what we were going to talk about or anything of that nature. But another thing we want to talk about, just to shoot the shit on, really. And the reason I brought this up was because I actually did it today because I was really bored. But as you know, a lot of us collectors, we have a man cave, a room of toys. And this here is my man cave. And I got a little bored. And for you people who do watch me on my show and on Galactic Gumbo and Cybercast, as you can tell, some of the stuff is moved around. Different items are here. They're like, the Toy Story ones are moved, so people stop making fun of me and my Toy Story toys. So I moved those around. The Ninja Turtles are back here now. The Missile Command set's up there. You know, different stuff's moved around. You know, and I moved stuff around. And I was the same way as a kid in my own bedroom. I moved stuff around all the time. Mother couldn't stand it. I would clean and move stuff around. That's what I did. I cleaned and moved stuff around. As far as a man cave, I actually consider myself kind of lucky, you know, being a married man and having children, to have a room dedicated just for me solely, you know, because usually a lot of people don't have that. I've met people who don't have the extra space and all their stuff's boxed away in boxes. Yeah. You know, I have a couple of trophy cases that aren't visible, and then I have the one case back here. And then this whole complete wall is covered in them. A couple walls over there, a couple of title belts hanging from the ceiling, more shelves over here. You know, I mean, I can take my camera and move it. See, I got that case there. Star Wars, the Toy Story toys, G.I. Joe, the G.I. Joe case now I have. You know, so I mean, and my room here was originally, what my house, this here was the single car garage, is what this used to be. And you know, I got the kitchen door here. So as you saw over here, I had where you could see it was big enough for the car. There's a breezeway there, which is really the cat's room, and then past that is which is the 2-car garage. And so I ended up building a wall here of a door, because it gets hot in here during the summertime, and it sure as hell gets cold in here during the winter times. I have, you know, a couple fans. Usually have a window unit, but I put one in this year. But I mean, it's something that I've been lucky to have. If I could post pictures here, I could show you what I started out with, and it was next to nothing. And over the years, you know, I've just got so much junk. It's not even funny. Over the years. Now I've bought, I've sold, I've just done away with a lot of stuff over the years. So I mean, as far as a man cave, I mean, I like it. And even on the other side of this case, there's more shelving with all my BotCon and JoeCon box sets on it. Just the boxes, not the sets. And some of the sets are on there, but most of them are not. But I mean, I would ask people to comment about their. Hold on a second. Will we do it next episode when everyone will be back? Well, we don't know when the next episode when everyone will be back. It's kind of hit and miss. Chris might be back on the 30th. Possible. Oh, Chris Barrett might be back on by the end of the month. Okay, that was Dalton. I thought Dalton was saying something intelligent, but it wasn't. Tell us about your you have not one, but 2 man cave rooms. You have a 4-year-old child and a smoking hot wife that lets you do all this.
Yeah, I guess I'm pretty lucky.
You are one lucky son of a bitch, hands down. I mean, in all honesty, you really are. I mean, some people are not lucky by any means, but I've met your wife. I enjoy talking to your wife, lovely lady, and she, you know, she's so cool and calm and collective about the stuff. She knows a little bit about it to a degree. She goes to the cons.
Yeah.
When you have a woman who will sit outside the con room floor and guard your stuff like the juggernaut, I mean, it's just something just blows your mind away. You know, I mean, kudos to her. I mean, from a woman who got a picture frame hit upside her head.
BotCon, yeah.
I remember that's when I remember the first year I saw her, and then it was in 2010, and then I specifically remember her getting hit in the head with the picture frame.
It's crazy.
Which we do bring it up and joke of her about it every now and then.
Oh, yeah.
But if you've never met Rick's wife, if you go to JoeCon next year, you'll see her. She'll be there. She is a trooper, a big time trooper.
She's great. Thank God. So,
no shit.
I'm just gonna. I don't want to. I'm getting older now, so I've had tons of different versions of man caves from early back, like 91 was my first apartment, and I had a little man cave that was a single shelf that had vintage Star Wars figures on it in 91. I don't even know if I've told anybody that. I mean, a few people know, but anyway, right now I've got a room upstairs, which is it used to be just Transformers up until this last year, and I blame Mike because now it's Transformers and the G.I. Joe. But yeah, I've got a pretty extensive Transformers collection. I still only have maybe and up there, let me talk through it a little bit. So I'll give you an overview, then I'll go back and talk about it. Because I know a lot of people collect differently, and they definitely nowadays everybody displays a little differently. Although I will say a lot of the folks I see on the YouTube shows and things like that, a lot of people are going to detolfs. I think that's great if you have a small collection. My problem with detolfs is I'm just not that person. Here's why. I'm in my 1/6 scale room. Most of this room is 1/6 scale. You're probably seeing about, unfortunately, I don't have a way I can't show you the whole room. I'll have to take some pictures at some point. You're probably seeing, I'd say 15% of what's in this room. Probably 15, maybe 20% of what's in this room. Mostly 6 scale, but I've got Mask in here, Voltron, Masters of the Universe. I've got like 2 6-foot shelves of just Masters of the Universe classics. That's about it. It's a lot of 1/6 scale stuff for the most part. And I actually, when I added on to our house right before we had our first child and put this room on, so this was the first room as like an older collector. So I had time to think about it and thought about what I wanted to do. And I knew that I was going to put up a lot of 1/6 scale Star Wars. And at the time I was really into Sideshow. I still am. Not Hot Toys, not so much. They had come on the scene, but I didn't have a lot. So what I ended up doing is like even the color palette of this room was picked because I love Empire Strikes Back. I don't know if you can see it looking behind me, but I've got a museum glass Empire Strikes Back poster, and then you've got this guy behind me, the Boba Fett, the 1/1 scale bust on the podium. And I had those 2 items, and I actually wanted to make a room around those 2 items. And that's kind of what I started to do. So I had someone come in and build these custom white shelves back there, because the way that I collect is I like to put a long line or a scene together. So if it's Marvel figures, all the Avengers are on one shelf from whatever movie they're from, or The Empire Strikes Back, or The Clone Wars, or A New Hope. Everything's done in these long shelved out scenes. And that's why I can't put things into detolf, because detolfs don't hold how I like to display. A lot of those detolfs, you can barely fit 2 or 3 1/6 scale figures in there. And I think that's great if you only collect like your favorites, you know, and you have like maybe 100 or even 50 of them. That's great. But for me, I put them on these long shelves. And I also had a black cabinet built because I wanted to. Sideshow had put out a Jabba the Hutt, a 1/6 scale Jabba the Hutt on a throne. And they had some side pieces to that you could get, like Han and Carbonite in the floor to Jabba's palace. And they had Luke when he meets the Gamorrean guard, and they have like the archway of Jabba's palace. I knew I had those 3 things. So going into this, I'm like, Jabba's palace environment, I want to put R2 in there. I want to put 3PO. I got the Luke. I want to put a Jawa. I want to put Boba Fett. Anybody that was in Jabba's palace. So I had a black case built, and it's enclosed, so it's got 2 doors, and on the inside of it I can store all of my Hot Toys boxes, all those things, because I know I for one, I'm never against selling the Hot Toys. The Hot Toys hold their value pretty well, so I knew I wanted to hide the boxes, and that was a way for me to hide probably upwards of, I think I can fit about 35 40 Hot Toys boxes in there. So I built that. I had like the custom lighting put in, and a floor that looked more like museum-esque. So this room is how, if I could do my entire collection like I have this room was built from what I wanted as an adult. My upstairs, my Transformers room upstairs, is a hodgepodge of stuff. It's all kinds of, from cheap shelves to middle of the road shelves. They're black. Some of them are wood grain. It's a little bit of everything up there. It's more of a hodgepodge. It's not anything custom built. And if I could have like the perfect, and I've got a lot of, I would say Transformers, my collection's huge. I probably have maybe, I'd say 70% displayed, which is a high percentage. I've been collecting for a while. From vintage to Japanese stuff, modern stuff. I don't have, currently I took down all the movie stuff except for Buster Prime, but I have a lot of movie stuff. And then, so I've got the 2 rooms. I've got 2 or 3 closets of boxes to all this stuff. And then I've got a garage with all my stuff I don't have displayed, like my original Star Wars stuff. Some of that I have inside the house now, but there's still some stuff out in the garage that a lot of Power of the Force, like 1995 Star Wars stuff, up until like even Black Series that I don't. I have some Black Series that I mess with, but I don't have them displayed currently. So I have a ton of stuff that I can't display, which is, you know, it is what it is. I've been collecting for a long time. I'd like to display everything. If I had my way, I would have a separate warehouse that was just toys. And honestly, like, if I had a dream job, it really would be to open up a toy museum. And it's not even, I don't really consider that anything to make money. That would be me as an old man with like, what is the one thing that you'd like to do? And honestly, I'm this person where if I could open up something just to stay afloat and not make a whole lot of money, but like give back to like families, if you only charge like $1 to tour this toy museum, and you know, a family comes in, wants to show their kids toys they played with when they were kids, just for the nostalgia feeling. That's something that I would like to do at some point. If I'm dead and gone, hopefully somebody can take this collection. I've mentioned it to my wife as well, and put it, not just sell it all, but put it into a toy museum so people could kind of see those things. I honestly think that we're getting to a point where toys are starting to dry up, and the sales aren't there, and everything's electronics and iPhones and games and things like that. At some point, a lot of the people that have kept all their stuff in good vintage condition, we're getting really old, and some of us, you know, have a lot of stuff, but it's a matter of keeping that stuff in an environment where it doesn't all decompose or get lost or get damaged. So I hope some of my stuff ends up in a toy museum at some point. But yeah, I mean, that's an overview of my current man cave situation.
I know. Is that your old man Luke back there on the shelf? Your new one you just got in?
Yeah, he's back there.
Yeah,
I love that figure. My kid loves that figure too. He came in a little bit early between our shows tonight. He came in. He likes to always, come in and give him a hug and kiss goodnight. And he looked over to that shelf. And he's like, I don't know if he had seen the new Luke, and I have him kind of pulling off his hood, like the movie. He loves that figure.
Yeah, he has the robot arm and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw the pictures you were posting on Twitter. They look really awesome.
Yeah, he's a cool figure.
It's funny you should mention. Now I know some people that I know you didn't meet him at JoeCon. He wasn't able to make it this year, but he was a real good friend of mine. He actually lives down in Houston, and he was affected by the hurricane. I have to actually send you pictures of his before and after pictures of his room.
Oh, it kills me just to hear it.
Well, he had, from my understanding, was a majority of his stuff he got to a mini storage. And so I guess they weren't expecting it to be that bad, but he got like his high dollar items out. Yeah. But his whole house is a total loss.
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
to hear it.
And he had a nice room too, real nice room. I mean, but the last picture I saw, the water was up to the bottom of his roof.
Wow.
So his whole house was completely under. Another guy I know, he lost 90% of his collection. They had to rip out all the floors and 2 feet of the sheetrock all the way around of the house. So, yeah, there's people I know in Houston. I know one guy, you might know Zach, that lives down towards Miami. He was the one, he came with his brother and his mother and grandmother. He used to have the hunch, but he got straightened out.
Oh, was he a BotCon goer too?
Yes.
I feel like I've seen him, yeah.
But he had the surgery. He was able to stand up straight. He had a real bad back problem. But anyways, he actually rode out the storm, and they had no. Last I heard, no damage. He lost power. Last time I talked to him, they got it back. So he did really good. He was down there. It's Sunshine, Florida, which is just north of Miami, which I'm not too sure how big of a hit they got. But he said they rode it out, and everything worked out great for him. So I feel for the fellow collectors down there, who've got involved and they've lost their collection or lost parts of it, and
and it's one of those things, like you put it all in perspective. Obviously, your family and your well-being is number one. Once all that stuff is safe and stuff, I think the thing that. If you're just started collecting, but you're not like hardcore, it takes a lot of time to collect, and whether it's put into a man cave or you're just putting it into big old plastic containers and stuff to keep it vintage and take care of it. No matter what, it's a lot of your time, and at this point, it's been a lot of years, probably for you and me both. Oh, yeah. Just keeping the stuff from being damaged, even if it's just loose. Keeping stuff from being damaged, changing O-rings in your G.I. Joe figures, anything that you might do to upkeep your collection. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of energy, and we both know it's a lot of money. So
definitely. I know it was funny how you mentioned how you got started. I remember I always had the toys as a kid, and I didn't really get into hardcore collecting till probably maybe when Transformers was kind of making a comeback with the Generation line in a way.
Yeah.
And I bought a few here or there. I'd gone through my second divorce. Now, mind you, people, having a man cave means you will go through many divorces. I am on number 4, so trust me. It doesn't pay off in the long run. He could testify. He's on number 2. Yeah. He could testify. Anyways, I kind of had a few figures here and there. And then when I got married for the 3rd time, and she knew I collected comics and toys, it was kind of like when I moved, it was kind of like I lived on my own. I had my own little bachelor pad. I worked overnight in the hospital. I had comic books everywhere. I had toys hanging up. And she knew I did this. She was okay with this.
Yeah.
it was like once she said I do, but I don't know more.
Right.
You know, and that changed, and it was kind of, and this is true story. It came to the point to where it was kind of like you had to ask for permission. You know, I was at the point to where I was put on a limit of how much money I could spend per week on comic books, but that big fat bitch could spend whatever she wanted on cigarettes and around 44 Diet Cokes.
It's definitely this is the
nobody.
late cast, folks. The late cast.
This is the late cast. Let me tell you what, man. If I spent $6 at the comic book store, she was on that phone calling me after I done swiped that debit card because she knew. What'd you spend $6 on? I bought two comic books.
It's definitely a certain lifestyle. Definitely a certain lifestyle. Like, you know, Erica, my wife, she likes certain pop culture things. She reads like crazy. She reads a lot of books, and she loves The Walking Dead. She didn't read her first comic book or graphic novel, as some folks call them, until The Walking Dead, and I started to buy her the hardbacks. One a year. I think there's maybe like 12 issues in that hardbacks, but she started getting those. I heard about a book called Lock and Key. If you haven't heard about it, you will soon, because it's going to be a television series on Hulu, I believe. It's Stephen King's son, and he can write the hell out of a comic book. She got on to Lock and Key after I read it, and I told her it was the greatest story I've ever read outside of Stephen King's It, which is in theaters right now. But Lock and Key is a good book. She read that. But other than that, she's not like she doesn't read like X-Men or G.I. Joe or Transformers. Now she watches all the movies, and she sees me and my son. You know, we're playing with the toys now. Sometimes together, sometimes apart. But she knows a decent amount of pop culture. She's definitely part of it. But she's by no means a collector. So, you know, she's pretty good about it, or lets me kind of do my thing. There have been a few moments. There have been some moments when I bought that Defiant this past year. That was a moment where it was like, what are you doing? That Defiant, it's huge. And, you know, it was not cheap. But I wanted to say one thing, one collecting man cave tip, because I hate doing this and not having like some tip for somebody that's like trying to start and they don't want to go DTOF end. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's how you collect. So if you're a 1/6 scale guy, you're like, if you see that they put out like a Batmobile or anything large, like the DeLorean, they put the DeLorean out. Or if you've got like a Defiant or the G.I. Joe hovercraft, the Whale, if you have some of these big things that take up a lot of space, one thing I found that's a cheap, easy way to display them, and also that's got other uses, go to like a Target or a Walmart and look for a banquet table. And sometimes they have thin ones and they're adjustable. And I ended up putting my 1989 Batmobile. I tweeted this stuff years ago, but I'll have to do it again if somebody's watching and wants to see it. Get you a black, big black tablecloth. Put it over top of that banquet table. It'll hold your 1989 Batmobile along with 1989 Batman perfectly, and raise it all the way up to its highest thing. If you want another, let's say you like that, but you also have the tumbler or you have the bat pod or something that's too big for a shelf, and you're like, where do I put it? You get another one, put it right next to it. They're pretty thin. It's just big enough to hold the Batmobile like a figure. Put that black tablecloth over it, and it looks high end. It looks like you're at a trade show and you don't know what's under there. But you know what's under there? Comic book boxes. Hot Toys boxes. You can hide your boxes and comic books under that black tablecloth that's on that banquet table that's raised up. The table itself's like $35. The tablecloth might be $12. So you spend about $40 and you've got a place to put the bigger items. Whether, like I said, whether it's the Defiant, I ended up putting that on a 34 by 34 poker table, putting a black tablecloth on it, and I made a Lazy Susan for it. I can get into that later, but I made a Lazy Susan for it. So I put it in a corner, but I want to be able to see the whole thing. And I got a piece of fiberglass cut down to a circle that's 32 by 32. And now you can spin the Defiant around.
Oh,
anyway,
wow. That's awesome.
there's cheap ways to do this stuff. So if you guys ever have any questions, you can always reach out to me on Twitter, the Shattered Glass Jazz, because I'm all about helping, like, especially some of the younger collectors who think that detolfs are the only way to go. And, you know, even the custom shells and stuff behind me, I had a local guy, make those for me, and it really wasn't very expensive. So,
well, the cheapest way to go about being a collector is stay single.
That too.
Stay single. Another story we were talking, you know, I was telling you how I'd been when that one wife, I'll say her name because she's not watching. Her name was Angela, and we were living in an apartment, and I wasn't collecting at all. Really, it was kind of like just a couple of comics a week. But the job I was doing, I was making hand over fist money. I was making real good money. And she always believed in having literally like a $600 cushion each week, and just sit there in the bank account. That was it. No bills due, nothing. Just sit there. And so I started picking up a few things here or there, and I couldn't display them because she would be like, "What the hell is this?" And then so what I started doing, you know, where you have your refrigerator, usually there's a cabinet above those refrigerators.
Yeah.
There's a couple of doors. Well, I lived in this apartment, had a refrigerator, a couple of doors, and I used to hide them up there in the corner all by themselves. True story. My mother's over visiting. We're sitting in the living room. She goes in the kitchen to get, I don't know what it even was now, but I remember her, she opened up something, and all I heard was, "Michael Aaron, what is this up here?" I'm like, "Oh, shit." And of course, she didn't go too bad into me because my mother was there. My mother would have laid into her because Mama wanted her baby boy to have anything he wanted. But then of course, that was a whole other shitstorm there and doing that. And then it was got divorced, so that didn't last long. It actually didn't last long after that, I don't think, to be honest with you. And then I collected. You know, I started picking up. I got back in the movie lines when they started coming out in 07. So that was about when all this went down. So 07, started picking up the movie lines, Generation lines.
Transformers, yeah.
Right. Not too long before the divorce, I opened up my comic book shop that we talked about earlier. And that was okay to a degree, but not really. It was kind of like, it wasn't, you know, when you open up a business like that, you're not going to make hand over fist in 2 months and pay through all your bills.
Yeah.
You got to do something else to make some money. And it took it probably 6 months before it was, maybe less than that was paying for itself. That's all I cared about in the long run. And like within 2 months, she wanted me to close it down. I'm like, no, you can't close it down in 2 months. You got to give it some time. But that was back when I really wanted to go to BotCon, and I looked up and saw that 08 was in Cincinnati. I knew it was close for me, and the storyline was the Shattered Glass universe, and I was like, oh my god, that's great. I want to go in on this.
2008.
Couldn't afford to go. Didn't go. I wanted to go. I thought about 09 until they said California. Didn't go. 2010 rolled around. I was finally able to pull it off and go. Drove it.
Yeah.
And at this time, I was with who would have been future wife number 4, who was actually ex-wife number 2. Don't ask me. Long story. Jerry Springer. But in the long run, it wasn't that bad. I mean, she got sick. She hasn't gone to another show since then. I always told myself that probably the only show I ever went to. By golly, I went to every single one till they ended it, and then I have gone, to 4 Joe Cons, and next year I'll make 5. So I mean, being a collector is this here does not happen overnight, unless you win the lottery. If you win the lottery, yeah, but I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. It didn't. I mean, I remember. Like this wall over here, like about halfway, was all I had. The rest of this room was completely bare. Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I've been living in this house for Let's see, Gracie's 9. 5 years, going on 6 years, maybe longer than that. So I've been here quite a while. So ever since I moved out of my mother's house, this is the longest I've ever had a place of my own. I was always in that young stage where I was like a damn gypsy. I was moving all the damn time.
Yeah.
You know, I just need wheels on the house and just keep moving to different lots or something.
Yeah, I don't know how long it would take me to move me now. It's past that point where I don't even know if I could do it like if you were to do it at night after you work. I think it would take me like 6 months to pack to get this.
Oh, easily. Well, easily, yeah, definitely months. What you have. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I know there is. There's every now and then I'll think to myself, yeah, I'd like to sell the house and move or do something different. But then once I look in here, I'm like, nope. And then once I look out in that garage, I'm like, hell no. I got so much. It's like I remember when I moved, there was barely anything in here and in my garage. And now, since both parents have passed away, I got so much crap out there, along with my crap and my car in there. I mean, it's just compact. I'm settled in. The house is settled. I don't plan on moving. All I plan on doing is just, fixing.
Getting more stuff. Getting all the things.
It's so hard to get more things because I want to get so much more. But since like I have no more room in here, and then it's like I lucked out on the G.I. Joe case. I lucked out on that. I got that for $25.
That might as well have been free. You might as well just say you got that for free.
Yeah, it was highway robbery. I mean, if it wasn't for that, majority of this room would be taken up with long showroom cases. And I love, if you get into collecting, these trophy cases are the greatest thing in the world. Yeah. Because they go straight up. They don't go 4, 5, 6 feet wide. So, yeah. But here's one more thing for you. Did you see where Toys R Us is possibly filing bankruptcy?
Yes, and saw it coming. We've been talking about this for a while. Brick and mortar. I mean, you and I will probably live to see brick and mortar completely die. It's happening.
Yeah, there was a big article where it's going to be a pretty big thing. Apparently, it might come down to where they've done one too many exclusives that didn't pan out. It's just Amazon. There's just too much. Walmart, Target, Amazon. And then you got like your online stores like BBTS and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but distribution's the sadder part of it.
It's just everybody wants it now. Everybody wants it easy.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like Amazon just sent me something the other day, giving me like an overview of how much money I've saved this year having Amazon Prime. I hadn't seen that last. I did it last year, maybe the year before. I've only had maybe 3 years, but I'd saved over $300 this year in shipping using Amazon Prime, and I'm like, I knew that. That's why I did it. For somebody like me that collects and stuff, right. I mean, I use it to fill gaps, especially this last year with the distribution stuff, and I use it for a lot of. I get books and stuff on there too, and I get a little bit of everything. But yeah, I think brick and mortar, we're beginning to see what's going to go down.
It's kind of like when I was on vacation last week, and we were in Branson, and I wanted to stop at something different, something I've never been to before, and I found a couple of comic book or collector stores. And only one of them was actually open, and they had the newest wave of Titans Returns. Haven't seen it nowhere else, and his cost was $20 a figure. I said, you know what? That's fine. I said, I'm going to spend more than that in gas trying to find the damn thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
hopefully everybody enjoyed that little behind the scenes of collecting with Mike and Rick.
Yeah, the number one thing you should have learned through us old people is don't get married. Stay single as long as you can.
Or in my case, you got to wait for the right one. And when you find the right one, don't take no for an answer.
Or find one who is filthy rich and wants to take care of you,
yes,
I will be your house bunny all day long and not think twice about it. I will run around here and I'm in kitty, everything. But we'll call the show there. I was kind of hoping maybe Josh would have popped in. His team won 56-0.
What?
Yeah, I mean, come on, Josh. I mean, it's a blow up. You could have at least came on for Galactic Gumbo and saved us a little bit. But that's okay. We had, this is kind of like the old man edition, since we're the older ones of the group.
That's true.
Since we are the older ones.
But also the sexiest.
With beards.
Yeah, with beards.
With beards. Josh doesn't have a beard, so we didn't want Josh on here anyways. But thanks for tuning in. We do appreciate it. For you guys who are on here or do watch this later on in video form that are part of the Just Another G.I. Joe show, next Saturday night, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, we will have on with
Marguerite Scott.
Marguerite Scott. She is a current writer for First Strike IDW. She is also she did a big run on
Transformers Till All Are One. It was fantastic, guys. This is a really cool show Mike's got playing here, Mike and Fred.
What is it, 10 or 12 issues she did?
I think it was about 12 issues. And I think there's an annual that hasn't come out yet. I think there's still going to be an annual that she does. I think that might be the final part, but it's a great run.
We are having her on to talk about what her take is for being a writer for a G.I. Joe character, since they are in First Strike as well. I will say this, fair warn, that we will not touch any issue whatsoever dealing with Aubrey
Sitterson.
With his comments. Now, that does not mean that we will not talk about it later on in another episode. But as far as a guest that we have on who is currently with IDW as well, we will, out of her respect for her, and we don't want anything getting misconstrued or taken in the wrong context, we just will not be asking her any questions on her thoughts or anything, or me or Fred will not even discuss the situation of that. We actually do have in the works, in the plans, knock on wood, to have a discussion of the issues at hand with that gentleman from IDW, his comments, and how the outpour of just back and forth from G.I. Joe patrons to people who don't read G.I. Joe, or just, trust me, it's a whole topic of its own alone. At least it's a good 2-hour show. But that's something we will not touch on whatsoever. This is strictly to talk about what's currently going on with First Strike and what she previously did with Transformers, and hopefully maybe we can pick her brain that maybe she'll be writing some more G.I. Joe later on down the road, annuals, one-shots, something of that nature, or special series. You never know what IDW will do. But that will be next Saturday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Me, Fred, and I'm sure Rick will be there.
Yeah.
And I believe Dakota said that he was going to try to make it. So that will be a very, very good episode that we will be looking forward to give everybody who does follow me here on this channel. But in 2 weeks from today, we will be back on G1 Hexagon channel. He will be doing Galactic Gumbo and Cybercast starting at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. The dates on that one is actually, here's the sad part. I don't know whether I'll be doing that show yet or not either.
I won't be on the next one, but.
Well, the next one's my birthday. It falls my birthday. So I'll probably be on. So, I mean, I'll probably be on there. I'll probably be on there anyways. I mean, the only thing I want to do is get a cake and get fatter than I already am. So might as well sit here, do a podcast, and get fat eating cake while I'm doing that, man. But so, yeah, next week, right back here, Just Another G.I. Joe show with me, Fred, Rick, and Dakota. 2 weeks from now, me and Josh, and probably Dalton for sure. Possibility that Barrett Prime will be back with us. He's been on a little bit of a hiatus, and we hope to get him back as soon and all see what all he's been doing and dropping off the top of his shelf. So until next time, appreciate y'all watching here. I'm sure this will be uploaded to Josh's YouTube channel as well. So you'll be able to catch it here on my channel as well as his. And we do appreciate y'all following us, staying up late with us. You can find me on Twitter as BotconFan1978, and you can find Rick on there as well as Shattered Glass Jazz. Appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot. We will talk to y'all later.